live, so it's all like, should I have like headphones? Should I be all like?
No, you sound great.
Like actually. You, and you're not getting any like echo or anything?
No, you sound fantastic. Okay, so we are live, right? Yeah, it says we're live. Great. What's up, dudes? Welcome to the second now live stream version of the PokerNews podcast. I wanted to give everyone the opportunity to just see kind of what goes on behind the scenes, the unedited, the longer form conversations. And this, in fact, is one of the most perfect people for me to have on in this spot because I'm comfortable with Evan. He definitely will. I have a feeling you will take this and just run with it, which I love. So first of all, welcome everyone to the show. Evan Jarvis, the grip, also known as what I say, Gripsed.
You say it right. You're one of the few people who says it right. She knows.
I learned English at school. It was a thing. Now, let's just start off with the basics. You've been on the show before. You know, most people who are part of the PokerNews audience have either seen you with some video content type stuff or podcasting. You create a lot of content on your own. You do coaching both in, things that are very obviously directly related to poker, and then things which I think we will talk a lot more about, which are people might see as ancillary, but are also clearly very connected to poker. So let's start off with some of the basics. This year has been really different for you. We've seen a lot less of you on this sort of traditional tournament circuit. And, you've shared with me some of the stuff that you've been working on and why you really had to make some of these changes. So let's kind of bring all the homies on board and fill them in.
Bring them up to speed, let them know what's going on, let them know, like, where did Gripsed go? Why did he disappear? Why did you leave us? Why did you abandon us?
Exactly. We're all having like Gripsed daddy issues.
I had to deal with my own Gripsed daddy issues and see that it'd be okay if I actually, pattern stuff, it happens. So I was actually thinking about this right before I came on the show, right? Just in the last hour, I was in a float tank. I was kind of like getting my meditate on, kind of seeing what was going to come up. And I was thinking about what were the main reasons that I felt the need to take a break from everything. I've been going pretty hard over the years. I'm definitely a high achiever. I probably put out over 700 videos on YouTube in a span of like 5 years. There was a period where I was doing multiple videos a day. And then when Twitch came out, I'm like, ooh, live streaming, here's another avenue. And when I got invited to be a partner on there and kind of be one of the representatives for Twitch Poker, I thought, the goal was to be number one and keep up with everyone. And and well networked and skilled Jay Carver was, it's a pretty hard guy to keep up with. But still, that ego in me, that drive me said, I got to go for number one. I got to push it. I got to be number one. And that came at a cost, trying to be a top YouTuber, a top streamer, and a top player at the same time. I mean, even one of those on its own is very demanding. Who's gone for it knows, and people who have been on the show before probably talked about that. You kind of need to pick one. I was trying to pick three, and I felt the effects. When I was really pushing myself to make this content, it got to the point where I was just kind of focused from the neck up. I'm in the internet. I'm seeing good things are happening on the internet. I'm good interaction with my fans, building a good community, but I pretty much like forgot that I had a body whatsoever. So I wasn't eating well, wasn't sleeping much at all. I'm staying up till 6 a.m. nights after grinding, plus highly stimulated from the computer, plus learning, trying to learn new things. I was not moving much. I had ditched my exercise program, my yoga program. I wasn't doing any of that. And I also, outside of the stream, outside of the community, wasn't getting a lot of social time either. So my life was very, very, very out of balance. As a result, I did get very good results. I improved my game an insane amount during that time and was able to get some really solid scores. I got second place in the Supersonic for around 34K. And then a week later, I got my biggest live win ever at the Falls View Poker Classic, 1K buy-in event for 162K. And when I got that money, I was like, okay. At first, I was like, I'm going to play more tournaments. And within a day of getting that results, I'm like, I need to take a step back and reevaluate my life because I barely have the energy to get up out of bed at this point. For people who are watching, I had these really rosy cheeks that are still kind of pink, but they were like beet red people like, are you wearing blush? I'm like, no, I have adrenal fatigue. I've been really abusing myself, and this is the effects. So when I got that money, I said, okay, this is kind of a gift from the poker gods. It's a reward for the hard work that I've put in, but now it's time to take care of the other side. It's time to take care of, you know, life. So first I just took a break. I went to the Bahamas and I spent some time at the beach, got some sun, which I needed. I got some moonlight, which I needed. And I hope we'll talk about that too, because I believe strongly in the powers of the moon. I started eating good food and I slowly started moving again. But I was so stiff. I had so much pain in my lower back. I had so much pain around the core. Everything had really tightened up that I couldn't move very much. So it was a slow process. And because I'd been really neglecting my physical practice for, you know, probably 4 or 5 years since I started focusing on tournament poker and just got lost in that, I had a lot of undoing to do. You can't ignore something for 5 years and fix it in 5 days. So the process of getting my body back in shape probably took around a year. And then in that process, I'm like, okay, there's actually lots of cool stuff here. Let me go deeper. So I started studying more on the body, more on nutrition, more on health, the holistic approach. Then I got into the spiritual path. I started learning about spirituality, different religions, kind of what they're saying that's the same, what's different, and what are the practices that they're doing. There's lots of group activities. I learned about the importance of love and connection. There's lots of singing. I learned about the importance of exercising the voice, the vocal cords, and shaking things up here to keep the energy flowing through. I learned to see the body as an energetic system as opposed to just a machine, as opposed to separate units. I saw it as a cohesive unit, more of like a garden. And, you know, I was learning all this stuff, which was fantastic, but still I was doing the heavy thing, right? When I was playing poker, I'm all up here and I'm all learning information about how I can like be better. And now I'm doing the same thing, but in a different area. So I'm learning lots and lots of things that I'm going to be able to apply, but I'm not applying them yet. And I was working closely with a body worker who really helped to fix my fascia, which is the connective tissue in the body, so I could actually sit up straight and stand up straight. And slowly we made openings in me that we could fill up with muscle so I could start to rebuild my frame, which is going on right now. And I remember he was talking about things like, okay, you want to work on your diet, you want to work on your relationships, your stuff with your family, and really heal these things. I'm like, okay, like that. And he's like, Evan, there are certain things you can't just read about. There are certain things you're going to have to go out there and do. And I know it might be uncomfortable for you to have these conversations or interact with these people or do these activities, but you're going to have to learn that life is about more than your mind. And stuff here, and actually part of the reason you're exhausted and all red up here is because you've just been filling all the blood, all the energy was up here. And I needed to learn how to bring that blood to the rest of my body to nourish my organs, which were not getting any blood, to nourish my muscles, and to start rebuilding myself. We know from some of the old videos, I was talking about the importance of rest, but I look very skinny in those videos. And it's because my brain was just taking all the energy that I had, the little bit of nutrition that I was getting, and just sucking it all up. So there was nothing left for the body. So I learned, okay, I have to get away from the computer. I have to get away from things that get me really focused in my head and on my eyes and give them a break. I've been a gamer for my whole life, staying up late all the time playing games. I'm like, wow, I've really abused my eyes. I think they need a break. So actually became like allergic to the computer. And I became like allergic to online poker because they have those pop-ups and those things to kind of get you excited. I'm like, I can't have this kind of stimulation right now. So I spent a lot of time in the float tank, just in complete darkness. I spent a lot of time in meditation, focusing on feeling what's going on inside, moving the energy inside instead of outside, which, you know, was outside a lot when I was trying to build up a brand and build up my own ego and build up my achievements and run all over the place trying to do a million things. So I had to bring it back in, slow down, calm down, do the yin side of the yin yang. And now I'm slowly, as my body is allowing me, coming back to creating content. Because there were a couple times I tried to come back to stream and I lasted a couple weeks. I'm like, no, I can't do this. There was one stream where it was the third one in a row, like Sunday, Sunday, Sunday. And I was like, I don't know if I want to stream either. So I got to go. And I was getting the muscles around my core, which are like, the fight or flight muscles that tighten up when we're in fear, were so tight that I could barely get up off the floor. And I'm like, man, how am I going to, I can just sit in a chair to do this stream, but clearly my body is telling me you don't need to be under pressure. You don't need to be pushing yourself. This is not the first time from like wanting to play poker so bad that I actually couldn't walk. This is the second time this had happened. I'm just like, okay, I need to start listening, because I'm getting some signs here. And the longer I ignore them, the louder the message gets. We call it the pain teacher in the school I'm studying with. And it's like the pain teacher will knock and try to talk to you. And if you listen, you can unwind the problem and be back to normal. You can be back to balance. But if you ignore, she's going to knock louder and louder and louder. That's why a lot of people might take things to medicate themselves. And they're like, it's getting worse though. Louder, louder, louder. It's like, you need to actually address this. And for me, it was really strange, because I'm like, what do I need to do? I needed to do nothing. I needed to do a whole lot of nothing and just slow things down, lower the demand on my system, let the adrenals kind of chill out from being overactivated. And then as I calm down, focus on nutrition, giving my body the energy it needed. And then once I had that energy, focus on relationships. I spent a lot more time with friends, with family, practicing my holistic life coaching for free, because I realized how beneficial therapy can be for people. And therapy is expensive. So when you have someone who will just come and sit with you for 2 hours and listen to what's going on in your life and really be present and hold that space for you, that's a huge gift. So I just started doing a lot of that. And I felt a lot of healing for myself in this process, because I'm like, oh, like, this is one of the reasons I was doing so much, trying to put myself out there, was so I could have some attention, so I could be heard. And I'm giving that back and understanding what really giving attention and really holding spaces, as opposed to just not really paying attention or just talking and not listening. Yeah. And so in that process, I've slowly rebuilt myself back up. I played a very minimal amount of poker, kind of the events I thought I was obligated to play and that I really look forward to. Like, I love the main event, but even that, before the event, Greggy and Tony, I'd been staying at the house with them for a month, because I just want to hang out with the boys and be around that vibe. And they're like, hey dude, you gonna play some poker? I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna play the main. They're like, yeah, but like, aren't you gonna like warm up or something for it? I'm like, I kind of don't really want to go sit there any longer than I have to. And they're like, dude, you have to go play. I'm like, fine. So I went and played 1-3, because that's where there was a seat, and I played for 30 minutes, coolered someone. I'm like, okay, I'm good. I know how to play poker. I'm going home. And they're like, what are you doing here? Like, what do you mean? They're like, no, you need to play. I'm like, fine, I'll go play the online event. And it did work out, because having not played and really built up my energy in this time, and the fact that the online event's a 1-day event and not a 3-day event, much less demanding, and having been around those guys like Greg Merson, Christian Harder, Tony Gregg, Orson Young, who are really elite players who are just talking poker all the time. I was in the poker thought process, plus I was really fresh, plus I was really excited, running really well in that event, playing well, and getting fourth for a little north of 70K. And I was like, okay, my system works. I don't need to push myself all the time, because I've done that before. And now I have some of the knowledge. Now it's about having the energy to get through the sessions. But I wouldn't go back and change anything, because when I was coming up, to get that knowledge and to get that confidence and to get those abilities, going all in and just playing, studying, talking, doing nothing but poker was worth it to get the skills. I acknowledged there was a lot of sacrifice, and those are the things that I'm now bringing back to balance. But I just love the game so much since I first discovered it, that I'm okay with the path I took. I'm just happy I finally took the messages from the pain teacher and chilled out for a bit, so I could potentially come back strong later.
Well, it's super interesting because when you say that it's different things work different for, different people, obviously. For you in this spot, you're like, I don't want to play poker 50 days in a row because I know what's working for me now. And something you mentioned to me, which you kind of just touched on, is that actually it can totally work for people maybe who are 18, 19 years old to just go all cerebral all the time and go crazy. That doesn't necessarily, it doesn't always have to be sort of this same prescription for everyone. And I thought that was really interesting. And also, of course, just for my own self, I can see a lot of changes in my energy level and my body the older I get. And, you know, things that were super easy for me 5 or 6 years ago, the jet lag and stuff like that, the hangovers, they've gotten significantly worse. So talk to me a little bit about, you know, how you see that maybe some guys that are younger, you can still encourage them to go a slightly different route. That it's before we get more into what I need to know about how to keep my body in my old years together.
I would say you're looking really good right now.
Oh, that's my C60. Do you take C60?
What is C60? Is that some like magical cream?
Oh, everyone needs to look this up immediately. But this is about you, so let's keep it moving here. But
okay,
I'm telling you, this is amazing.
Okay, I'm down with the C60. So we're talking about how when we're younger, we can get away with a lot that we can't when we're older. In my understanding, which is not, you know, guaranteed to be the absolute truth, but in my understanding, the body is much more resilient when it's younger. It recovers much more quickly. It has kind of more resources that are available. It replenishes itself. So when we're young, you know, we can play all night and have 2 hours of sleep and wake up the next day good to go. Anyone who's a partier knows that when you're in your early 20s, you can go to like a 3-day music festival and get through it no problem. You try to go to that same festival in your 30s, you go through one night and you're like, how do we even do like these 8-hour days? And they're still going. So I think we can really get away with a lot when we're young. And the more we're still like covering the bases of nutrition and movement and rest, we're going to recover even quicker. We're going to have more capability. But because we're so malleable when we're young and our brains are so malleable and we can learn so much more quickly when we're young, we don't have as much stuff clogging it up and as much responsibilities clogging it up. If someone finds something that they're really passionate, it's kind of worth going all in on it when they're young. You know, we see that with athletes, we see that with performers, we see that with, you know, top academic people. They just go for it because that's the time to really go after whatever your passion is, whatever your gift is, whatever your trade is, and just become fantastic at it. And then later you can learn, you know, what we make this joke, me and Ali make this joke that, you know, I work on the old man game stuff and they do the young man game. And I'm like, well, later you're going to need this old man game stuff. He's like, yeah, true. You're right. But whatever, old man game. And I think it's totally fine to go for it as long as we know the cost, the sacrifice. The body's going to be able to rebound, but things like relationships don't necessarily rebound. Most of my students, and myself included, and my friends who have really killed it in poker in their early years were like, I kind of had to sacrifice my social life for 2 years. And some people say that that's totally fine. My motivator, Eric Thomas, he's like, yeah, when you want to be successful and the phone rings, you got to say, hey, you got the wrong number, but you got the wrong time. Call me back maybe next year. And it's kind of that level of focus is what's going to allow someone to totally excel, because immersion is the fastest way to learn. And the best way to immerse yourself is do something every day with other people who are doing it every day as well, so you get different perspective. Make sure you're covering your basic needs so you have the energy to get through the day. But beyond that, like, the more you're doing that thing, the more you're just going to become a master at that. And if you're okay with the sacrifice of, okay, I'm not going to have as much social, I'm not going to have as much fun, I'm not going to have as fit a body, I'm going to have to work on these things later in life, fine. If you aren't okay with that sacrifice, then you can work on all dimensions at the same time. And while you may not become the elite poker player as quickly, you're going to still get there at a pretty quick rate if you're covering all your bases, kind of like we see with like Fedor Holtz and guys like Jason Kuhn who really take care of that stuff. But the difference is when taking that approach, it's going to be sustainable, so that when you get to that high level, you're going to be able to stay there for a long time because you have that resilience about you. Whereas the all-in approach and forget everything else means you'll get there, but then you're probably going to have to hit a burnout period where you have to stop for a bit, work on the other things, and then come back. options work, and it's really just the awareness of the cost of the actions. Every action has a reaction, everything has a cost. And I think when we're younger, like when I was younger, we don't think about that, because we're just like, I'm invincible, I can do whatever I want, I'm in my own world, I'm becoming who I want to be, and I'm not too concerned about anyone else. And I think that's just kind of natural, but being able to be aware of that allows you to choose more actively, okay, is this how I want to do it? Or do I want to be having strong relationships throughout the way and just like really good habits that are gonna, for, how old's Daniel right now? Because he's one of those guys who's really like been doing it right all along.
Coleman?
No, I mean, he's doing it well too. Negreanu. Like, that's the guy who has longevity.
That's a good question. I don't even know how old he is.
I think he might be like
45.
45?
I don't know. That was a total guess.
I think, yeah, maybe around 43, 44, 45. But that's the guy who, because he covered the bases, he can compete on the highest levels. Whereas there aren't too many people from the old generation that we used to watch on TV that are still around, because they didn't have, or at least on tournaments, they're not around, where it takes a ton of stamina, because they weren't like, okay, I'm going to get my nutrition down, I'm getting my rest down, I'm getting my meditation down. Like, are required as you get older to just get through those long days. Because Sarah, how long are the tournament days?
So long. I mean, honestly, most of the time we're talking more than 12 hours a day.
And like, and you're all like amped up from the like adrenaline that's going on. Plus there's the excitement. So you get that where you can't sleep because you're all excited. Plus you have all the hands running through your head. Did I make any mistakes? And so it's like the same demand each day, but you have like less energy because you didn't get that sleep recovery. You're playing for higher stakes. You're more out of your comfort zone, unless you do it every weekend, which I don't think most people are doing. And doing it every weekend, they're pretty tired by the end of the tour, right?
Yeah, of course. Well, I think something that I want to ask you about too, in looking at all these different pieces of and elements of balance, you know, you talk a little bit about that you've been, in fact, giving some free sort of coaching and what's essentially breaking down to therapy to people. And then also you've always been a poker coach. You've always had sort of a little crew of people that are, you know, you guys are always helping each other out and trying to build each other up. But how much are you at this point then overlapping these two sort of elements in your coaching? So beyond just poker coaching, are those people also the same people that are receiving the benefits of all the stuff you've been learning in the holistic world, or are they more separate and you are bringing them together in your own self?
So I would say that my strength is definitely much more in power of positive thinking, how to use the secret and the law of attraction, motivational speaking, how to keep the energy high, therapy, coaching, kind of seeing what people aren't seeing. I feel that that is more my strong suit than the poker coaching per se. I think if someone wants a balance, I can definitely offer both. But when it comes to like elite strategy around poker, I think talking to the guys who are playing, you know, they're in the trenches, they're running the simulations with the pile solver, the guys that are way more in there are better ones to go for the poker coaching. And so before I was doing more poker coaching with a little bit of the, I guess we're going to call it holistic poker coaching is the best way to encompass it, with a little bit of that coaching. But as I get more into the big picture world and less about focusing, you know, obsessively watching every run at once video and every upswing course and raise your edge course I can go through, as I move away from that, I realize my niche is the right state of mind, cover their bases and see the things they're not seeing. And I actually kind of fell into that accidentally, because when I lived with Greg, and you know, that was,
do you want to tell the homies out there who you're talking about? I mean, I know who you're talking about, but
who I'm talking about. Yeah. So
the end boss, you guys, the team end boss, right? Tony, Greg, and Greg Merson.
Yeah, it's this guy right here. This guy. That show up on the screen.
Okay. He won a tournament a while back.
They were back to back, right? He won the 10K six max, then he won the main right after for I'm going to keep him here, actually. That's a good, this is like one of the highlights. Only I can tell it's me, but I'm like in the back here.
I mean, he's a sicko. And I will say from, you know, an outside perspective of someone who's just in the industry, he's also someone who has been really just available and open and honest about his own struggles and also about his own successes. He's gotten into yoga and, you know, he lost all that weight and is he married now?
He's
right?
married.
Yeah, I mean, it's been great to watch him also take his success and turn it into something even bigger and better.
He's now getting on the fitness. He's getting strong. He was actually telling me yesterday, he's like, it's amazing how much more quickly I recover from my sessions now that I'm meditating, exercising, and eating right. And I can play as much as I used to play when I was in my early 20s, but now instead of living off cigarettes and Red Bull, I'm living off real things that have me feeling better each day. The elite players are doing this. But yeah, I kind of fell into it when I lived with Greg. So Greg and I met in the summer of 2011 on an absolute fluke. Really bad summer in 2010. And we had a big house, like 8 people, but it was kind of the wrong mix of people. And so it was too much tough energy to deal with. And we were eating McDonald's every day and not feeling great. And it happens sometimes at the World Series. And a month later, I messaged the guys from the house. I'm like, do you guys want to get a house again next year? And they're like, oh, we're not sure. And I took that as like a slight, like my ego was like, oh my God. Well, you know what? Screw these guys. I don't need them anyway. Because that's what the ego does, right? It thinks like it's got everything under control. So when they decided to get a house in January and asked me if I wanted to be, I'm like, no way, man. Like, you guys didn't want to be in my house. I don't want to be in your house. Screw it. So I bail on the house and they have 2 extra rooms. And they were cash game players from Atlantic City. Invited Greg to stay in the house. So Greg and his best friend, Matt Pecker, were in that house with my friends. I was planning to just play the main event that year because I'd had, you know, one of those kind of tougher years where my energy wasn't high. I wasn't super motivated. I wasn't super confident. Like, I don't even know if I should go, but it's the main event, so I'll go. And my friend who's in the house calls me. He's like, hey, man, you need to come down early. I'm like, okay, like, why? And he's like, this guy in the house, his name's Greg. Like, I don't know. I think you're really going to get along. There's just something there. Like, I know, like, he's a huge grinder. He's hilarious. He's super talented. He puts in tons of volume. And, you know, you're in the affiliate business, so it could be a good, like, connection for you. But I also think you're just going to hit it off. So I'm like, all right, like, things were a bit on the rocks with my girlfriend at the time. So I'm like, I guess I got no real reason to be in Toronto. Like, let me go down to Vegas early and see what happens. And I show up at the house at like 6 p.m. And my buddy John lets me in and we're hanging out. I'm like, so where's this guy? He's like, oh, he's sleeping. He just, he finished a long session, but he'll be out in a minute. And 15 minutes later, Greg comes out. He's wearing sunglasses because he's lost his regular glasses and his sunglasses are prescription. And that's the only way he can see. So he comes out with his like sunglasses. He's like, hey man, like, you're Evan? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. You're an affiliate? I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. I'm a rake back whore, so we're gonna get along. You gonna hook me up? I'm like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, all right. So what's planned? He's like, we're gonna get breakfast. We're gonna go for steak for breakfast. You down? I'm just like, who is this guy?
Like, did I just see the Mick Jagger of poker? Like, what's going on?
7 p.m. We're going for steak for breakfast. The guy says he'll only drink Fiji water, and he's like, before we go, I got to fire up. And he just loads up like 16 tables on party poker cascading, and they're just popping up, and he's just catching every spot and making all these moves. And I'm just like, how? It's like, I'm used to multi-tabling like 8 tables tiled where I can see everything. He's just got a stack where the tables are just popping up. He's clicking. He's like, oh, this hand I got to play. So he drags it out of the stack and then keeps clicking while he waits for this hand to play. I'm like, wow, this is just another level. So this is what elite is. He's doing this and playing like 10-20, no limit. And like, he doesn't see, it's crazy. But I really liked him and we hung out for the summer. We connected. And this is right after Black Friday. So he's just lost his ability to play online poker. He showed me this hilarious video of the day that they go online to play and see that it's Black Friday. And it's just him and his buddies just sitting just like so sad faced, like, what are we going to do? And he, at the end of the summer, he's like, hey man, like I really want to play online poker. Do you know anyone who could help me out? I'm like, well, I just, I kicked my roommate out last summer. This is the one who invited me to meet Greg. And I'm like, so I have an extra room. You seem cool. You know what? Let's do it. Why not? Let's go for it. So Greg came up to stay with me in Canada. And that's when I saw what real drive looked like, real dedication looked like borderline addiction. I think Greg would say at the time that he was addicted to poker, maybe still would. I don't know, because that kid just fires. But I'm like, wow, this is intense, but I'll try my best to keep up. And we ended up moving to a new condo like 3 months later because he's like, man, I want that Drake lifestyle. I want the penthouse condo downtown. That one, I'm like, dude, month. He's like, whatever, man, that's the one we need. 44th floor, nicest building in the city, right downtown. That's where we're going. And I was like, Greg, why do we need that place? Like, you don't even care about going out that much. And this was something that really, really kind of clicked with me. He's like, I want to wake up in a place where I feel inspired every day. And if we have this big apartment with these amazing views and we wake up feeling like we're rock stars, we're going to be motivated to work harder to both make the cost of that rent, but then some on top. So he was big on being in an environment where kind of everything he needed was available, but he felt like a rock star. And so he was going to live up to that level. That year was crazy. I played more poker than I'd ever played. I pushed myself to my limits. Greg did as well. We watched tons of videos. We got into yoga. We were exercising like most days of the week. That's when I learned about cooking, eating well. And then and he introduced me to all my heroes. He introduced me to Lucky Chewy. He introduced me to King Dan. He introduced me to Aaron Jones. All the peoples whose videos I've been watching over the years to learn, now I was meeting in real life and getting to hang out with them. I was like, wow, this is okay. This is what community is. This is so cool. And he told me one of the most important things he'd done the 3 years leading up to this was network in the community so that he had poker friends. Because when he first went to a poker house with, I think it was Rich Lindeker and Tom Marchese, he said that's when his game just took off because he was immersed and it's all they were doing and they were all in it together. So I was learning a lot, having a great time, being around my heroes, but I saw I couldn't quite keep up with them. I didn't have quite the same level of drive that they did. And while I was pushing myself and improving, I'm like, I can't see myself like going to those high stakes. So what is it that I can bring to the table that these other people aren't focusing on because they're just playing? And that's when I started reading books. I read like The Power of Habit. I read The Winner's Brain. I read a bunch of books from Harvard on like the organs, back pain, the heart, all kinds of things. I just started getting my learn on, Think and Grow Rich. And I'm like, okay, how can I apply what I'm learning and like what's missing? And the one commonality I seem to see in most of the poker players wasn't a super strong connection with the father, or, you know, like the father in the family wasn't super proud. So there's like a tiny bit of that like subconscious shame feeling there of not being good enough. And that's why these guys, and myself included, push extra hard to be like, look, Dad, I'm achieving. Are you proud of me yet? Is it good enough yet? And it's not, because it's the wrong niche. So we push harder and harder because we don't realize we have to come at it from another angle. And they're actually concerned about our health. They think, you know, we're going to be degenerate gamblers or something. And so I'm like, okay, if that's what's missing, and for us to really feel our best, we need to feel like we're accepted, and we need to feel like we're loved, and we need to feel like people are proud of us. I'm like, okay, that's the role that I'm going to play. So every time I would see Greggy like just crush it, I'd be like, man, I'm so proud of you. This is so amazing what you're doing. And I tried my best to kind of inject that like proud father energy into the mix very subtly, not obviously, but I threw that in there and I felt like it had a positive effect.
So it could probably have a positive effect on like 90% of
Yeah.
our current society, because all of us have daddy issues, I think, at this point.
Yeah.
But half of us don't even have dads. Like, who is he? I don't know. Help
Yeah.
me. Someone be proud of me.
Yeah. It's tough. And so there's such a need for these like strong male figures and these male mentors in our lives. And like, I have a wonderful dad. I love my father so much, but he didn't really understand what I was doing. I came in when video games were a thing. They don't, so there's this disconnect. And so I didn't have that either. So that's why I put in the time I did with cards. That's why my YouTube channel went like it did. Cause I was like, well, if playing poker didn't make my dad proud, maybe this internet business and teaching thing will. So I'm going to go all in, and well, I'm not going to, okay, let me do more. And I'm like, okay, maybe it's tournaments, because you know, my family wants to see me on TV. So maybe if I win a tournament. So I went insane trying to win a tournament. When I did, I'm like ultimately I realized they just want to see that their children are healthy and happy and know how to love. So when I realized like, oh, it's simple, it's nothing to do with achievement. No amount of achievement is going to make them feel okay. But if I can just give love and be a good person, I'm going to have a good relationship. That shifted it.
And it's ironic because actually what you're doing in some ways in trying to create all these achievements is becoming that degenerate that they're afraid you're going to be,
Yeah,
right?
exactly. And like, they'll be like, so like, everything okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm making all this money and this and that. And they're like, okay, because you don't look so good.
Yeah, like, and also, have you had a girlfriend, or do you guys go outside? Like, yeah, I could see how it's you're basically becoming all the things they're afraid of in the course of trying to make them unafraid.
Yeah. And since we're programmed from a young age to believe in the power of the almighty dollar and that money is everything, it leads to this addiction for money in whatever form it is. And it's like, okay, like I'm doing it right. Why am I not happy? I was taught since a young age, money will make me happy. Money can't buy me happiness, but I'm happiest when I can buy what I want. You know, we're listening to all this music about it. We got kind of brainwashed. And then like, I'm like, okay, I got the money and I'm still not, okay, I need to do something else. But yeah, the last part of the Greg story, right? So we had that kind of in the mix. Greg was a crusher. I remember I introduced him to my chiropractor, who really helped me a lot. My body was like this up when I first met the chiropractor, and after a year I was like here, but still really damaged. And Greg had a lot of wrist pain because he just clicked all day. The reason he stacked his tables instead of tiling was so he wouldn't have to move the mouse, because that hurt his wrist too much. He just wanted to keep it static in one spot. But his wrists were really tight, so the chiropractor came and did some treatments to loosen up the tissue on his wrist and have him feeling good. And that chiropractor one day was like, hey, Evan, my client gave me these tapes. I think you're going to like them. I'm like, what are they? It was my first introduction to the law of attraction and The Secret. And he said, they're called Your Wish is Your Command. And, you know, it teaches you that whatever you wish for and really think about, you can manifest. I'm like, wow, that sounds like the biggest scam I have ever heard. And for years, even to this day, we call them the scam tapes because that was just the joke. And I can wish for anything I want, anything at all. Okay, I want to win the main event. I want to win the main event at the World Series of Poker. I want to get that lottery money, that 8 million, and then I'll just be good to go, right? That's what I'm going to do. And it said, you know, just affirm it, say it like you believe it, think about it all the time, dream about it, draw it, write it, feel what it would feel like, act as if you already have it, because that's going to get you to behave how you would need to behave to get the thing. But they said, you know, be patient because you're going to get it, but you don't know when. And I'm like, whatever, this is such a scam, but like, I'll just try it and see what happens. Intensely like Greg's doing, it's not quite working for me, so I'm going to try something else. So I'd walk around the apartment just being like, I'm going to win the main event, winning the main event. It's so sweet that I won the main event. Like, I'm so happy that I won the main event. He'd look at me and be like, dude, the fuck are you doing? I'm like, I'm winning the main event, man. My wish is my command. He's like, it's not how you win the main event, man. Win right here. This is how you win the main event. I'm like, whatever, dude, man. My wish is my command. I'm just going to keep saying that I'm going to win the main event and chill, and I'm going to win. Okay? He's like, dude, whatever. You're crazy. Just forget it. Now, funny thing is, Greg was applying the secret the whole time without realizing it, because he decided at the start of the year he wanted to win the 10K six max because it's the Pro Bowl of poker. It's the one that has the best players, toughest format. And if you can win that, you can show everyone I'm good at this game. Again, going to that thing, like the respect of the peers, people being proud of us. So fast forward a month, near the end of the summer, last event, pre-main event, Greggy does his thing, winning the 10K six max, and we're off to the main event, next tournament. We both do really well. We're also in a house that's fantastic. We're in a house with like 12 people. I'm going to try my best to list them all, and I hope I don't forget anyone. But we had some sharks there. We had Grayson Ramage, John Andress, Alex Kim, who doesn't play anymore, Mike Aaron, it's pretty strong, one of his friends, Greggy, myself. There were definitely more. I don't remember them all, but we were immersed in it, and people were coming by the house, a lot of strong players. So we were in that poker mode. Day one went great. Day two went great. I'm like, I'm going to win the main event. I'm legit, like, this is going to happen. I've been working on my game enough, doing my yoga. I've been doing my chilling. Like, this is going to happen. And on a break on, I believe it's day 3. It might be day 2. You know what? It's a late break on day 2. I remember we're outside smoking, because that's what we did back then. We smoked cigarettes and drank Red Bulls. And I remember Griffin Benger coming up to me and be like, hey man, how's it going? I'm like, good. And Griff was like #1 ranked pocket fiver, like sick tournament player. And he's like, you doing well in the tournament? I'm like, yeah, man, I'm doing really well. And I'm going to win. He's like, okay. I'm like, do you want to swap? And he's like, sure. I'm like, all right, I'll swap with you. But I've got more chips than you, so we're going to have to do a 2-to-1 swap. He's like, really? I'm like, dude, I'm going to win the tournament. Why wouldn't you do this swap with me? And he's like, okay, fine. My 2% for your 1%, deal. And we joked about this forever after me and Griffin, because he's like, there's no way I should have ever given you that swap. I'm so much better than you. I was better than you then, but I just actually believed you when you said you were going to win. So I just bought in. After on that break, Greg comes up to me and goes, hey, Evan, man, I got some bad news, bro. And I'm like, what? Why do you have to give me bad news? Everything's going great. You had your dream come true. I'm having my dream come true. Like, what's the problem? He's like, yeah, I know it's about that. You know how like you really want to win the main event? I'm like, yeah, that's the plan. I'm winning the main event. He's like, I just kind of came to like a realization, and I'm like actually going to win the main event. And I was just like,
good night, dude. Sorry.
Yeah. I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, but like, it's okay. We've got a swap. You've got 2%. So like, it's no big deal. Right. But like, don't worry. Like you're going to be a part of it. We're going to win, but like, I'm going to win. And I was just like, well, I guess you have been preparing better than I have. So I kind of dropped my belief that I was going to win. I'm like, I believe you, you're going to win. And well, 5 days later, he'd made the November 9, and 3 months later, he was the world champ. And that's why
he pulled a Griffin Benger on you then.
Yeah.
He was like, I'm going to win. And you're like, all right, fine.
Yeah. But fortunately,
I believe you.
The cool thing was I got a nice payday from it, which was enough to let me keep staying in this ridiculous apartment that I had no business actually living in. But I was able to have the feeling, which is what I was really seeking for, was that feeling of like winning a championship without having to deal with the stress and with like the drain on my body. So I busted day 5 that year. I did have a nice run and a good cash. And that day I was like, I can't be here. I got to go home. And our chiropractor who we flew down was like, you don't want to watch? I'm like, dude, you don't understand. Like, it really hurts the day you bust the main. And so for day 6 and 7, we were front row center, railing the thing till the end. And I wrote a lot about it on my blog. I have a lot of details about the story, but it was the most epic experience I've ever had. And since that day when Greg actually won the championship and I saw like all the crew together, and it gave me that feeling that I thought Chris Moneymaker had when he won, and I saw him hug his dad after winning the championship. I'm like, that's what I want. But I didn't realize I didn't want the 2.5 million. I wanted the celebration with my father, right? And so to be a part of the celebration with the whole crew and to see Greg's dad there and everyone, I'm like, wow, this is what it's all about. Everyone coming together for a peak experience and getting to celebrate it. Since that day, I've made it my goal to have that happen again. And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it. And that's why I obsessed about learning everything I could about tournament strategy. And I'm like, wait a minute. I don't have to win. And there's way more, you know, gripsters and students and stars out there than there are me. So if I just do the same thing I did with Greg and find these people who are super elite and then just give them the little tweaks so that they're going to feel their best and then play their best, I can be front row center and it's going to be just as good. And for the player, it's going to be even better because the first time is, when it comes to a big win, it's always the best time because it's this crazy, unbelievable rush. And knowing that experience from having, you know, a smaller scale win, but still a solid 6-figure score, I'm like, wow, I want other people to get to have this feeling so they can see just how good it is. And also see that once you get that score, now what do you need to do to get your life in check so you feel good all the time, as opposed to being like, okay, I need the next win to feel good. I need the next win to feel good. Because a lot of tournament players I know are like that. But like when Greg won, he's like, I got my girlfriend now. I'm going to go back home, stay with my family. Thanks for the hospitality. It's been real. But I got to go and just like take care of myself and chill out. And that's why he's been able to maintain his happiness. And I think there's a lot to learn. Really trusting yourself, trusting your intuition, and trusting your feelings, and making the choice to act on the information, that making the slow changes and the steady things, and seeing the benefits that really come from that. It's not the quick fix that we've been conditioned to believe we want, but it's the one where you get the same feeling as the quick fix eventually, but it doesn't come and go. It maintains. So you kind of build up your happiness at a sustainable level where you just get to feel good all the time once you've put in the work. And that's kind of what the holistic approach is all about, is being aware of that, applying it, and then reaping the rewards of doing so.
Well, as always, by the way, we are way over time. And also, I think there's still so many more things to cover. And there's been tons of people in the chat, by the way, who have just said that you've helped them out a ton, and tons of people who are just supporting you. I think it's pretty clear that this positivity that you're feeling in your own life and in your own self is very much contagious. And for those who are listening, who maybe would like to know how to find you or would like to know how to get a lot deeper into the things. I know you said you're starting a podcast yourself, and I think clearly we were just like scratching the little surface.
Oh, yeah.
So tell people where they can dig deep.
Yeah, sorry for going so long, by the way. The podcasts I'm doing are like 3 hours long. So I'm used to, we just start out with this and then we get like the high feeling and then we start digging into it. But for anyone who's interested in learning from me, my website is gripsed.com, gripsed.com. There's a section that says study poker, where there are 10 different courses that are all free. They're all playlists from my YouTube channel. And for those who prefer writing, there are about 500 articles there. Really into video, youtube.com/grips. I have over 700 videos there that cover foundational strategy in my Get Stacked in University course, mental game of poker, tournament reviews, student reviews. There's a lot of Charlie Carroll hand histories, and should probably make this announcement here. Charlie Carroll has requested that we review his Scoop $1.2 million win final table together. So I do have a review of me reviewing his play, but now he's actually going to come through and share the insight from what was going on in his mind. So that will be available on the YouTube channel, youtube.com/grips. And I'm probably going to and I'll probably release the podcast there first before going to iTunes. So that's the best way to get at me, is either YouTube or my website, grips.com.
I just appreciate it so much. You really are somebody who's so thoughtful. And I've had a lot of times where I'm rolling those 16-hour days and I think I'm just going to bang my head against the wall, where you pop your head in the office and just, give me a bottle of wine, maybe. Maybe it's a fancy Thai massage. But I can definitely see how, just getting a little taste of what you're working on it reminds everyone to just, take a breath periodically and appreciate what we have going on. And I just appreciate you. So when your podcast does launch, you better hit me up. So I'll also, of course, tweet out to everybody and let them know what's going down, and so I can snap sub.
Okay. Thank you, Sarah. I mean, you make it very easy to be so positive and so.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm known for, my positivity. Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I love you guys. Thank you guys, of course, too, for being with us. I really appreciate it. This is only the second time we've done this live interview thing. And yeah, I'm totally open for more feedback, but I like it. It's fun. Brent,
Sure.
I see that you're in the chat now, and you're going to be relegated to chat moderator from now on. All right. Deuces, everyone.
Thanks, people. Thanks for watching.